Thank you very much. And today we have a very interesting topic on metros and the smart urban transport systems. As we all know that India has invested in the metro systems over the last decade, and we have seen a phenomenal growth. We are inching close to almost 1,000 kilometers. We have one of the largest metro network in the world, and several cities in India have actually built and are operating the metro systems. Some of these projects have been projects which have really transformed. As we also know that metro systems are here to stay, not for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, but we're talking about next 100 years. And it's very important to understand in the urban context that how they are really going to change our cities, how they are going to change the way we live, the way we move around, the way we want to access jobs, access to education, access to services, to hospitals. I think it really redefines the way we are going to move in the city. With me today, we have eminent panelists, and I will really invite first Rajnish from AFD to really give his opening remarks on how the metro systems have been growing in the country and his views on how should really India look at metro system as a mass transportation system for sustainable growth. Hi Rajnish, over to you.
Thanks, Pawan, for this introduction. Your question here on the usage of metro systems in our country is quite pertinent. In fact, most of the cities are looking towards implementing metro systems in coming years. And there have been a number of metro systems, including Delhi Metro, Bangalore Metro, which have been implemented in cities, which have actually been able to address, I would say, not the whole of the problem, but a part of the problem of taking congestion off the road. And in fact, just to give you a quite close figure in terms of ridership that were mentioned in the DPRs of these metros vis-a-vis the actual ridership, Delhi achieved almost 55% of its figures against what was mentioned in DPR. Mumbai achieved even more than that. And there have been some metros which have not been able to realize those figures. But in fact, these metros have been able to actually give a better shape to the cities, give not a holistic, I won't say the holistic connectivity within the cities, but actually connectivity from one end to the another, for example, north-south and east-west corridors of these cities. And therefore, they are complementary and I would say an addition to the existing bus networks, feeder networks, and IPT networks, and actually helping in the economic growth of these cities. So that's what we have observed in the metros that we have financed in cities like Bangalore and cities like Kochi, and we are very hopeful about Pune and the upcoming metro in Surat, which might be operational in 2025, 2026. Yes, Pawan, over
Thank
to you. Yeah.
you. Thank you, Rajnish. I think you can hear me now, right? Yeah. Um, Sudhir, I wanted to get your opening remarks. I mean, as the operator of one of the largest public-private partnership and metro in the country and probably globally, what would you say how the metro system should be conceived in our Indian cities? And following that, your opening remarks, I have a bunch of questions for both of you. And we'll spend next couple of minutes over unraveling how these metro systems are changing our cities. So, with quick opening remark from you, Sudhir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pawan. And very rightly said by you in the opening remark, and also followed by Rajnish, that the metro systems in India are expanding. And this expansion has been very rapid in last few years. Maybe in last 5, 10 years have seen a rapid expansion of metro networks. And the government has further plans. In fact, if you see the Ministry of Urban Development vision, then it is said that about 100 cities are planned to be having a metro by 2047. That is 100th year of our independence. As of now, I think 740 kilometers of network is already operational in the country, and 1,000 kilometer works are already in progress. So there is no doubt that in India, metro is expanding, and it is the need of the hour, because the urbanization in India is also taking place at fast pace. And it is expected that by 2050, almost two-thirds of world population will be in urban areas, and China, India, and Nigeria will be the most contributor for this urban growth. So today in India, the urban population is about 35%, and it is bound to increase further. And with that, there is a mass rapid transport system is very, very essential as the urbanization takes place. Uh, Government of India is committed for uh, ease of life for the common people, and a rapid transport system which provides a clean, pollution-free transport is essentially one of the topmost item if we talk of ease of life for the common people. In
Thank
her,
you. Sir.
yeah, yeah,
Sorry, please
yeah,
go ahead.
please. Yeah. So I was just trying to conclude that the expansion is taking place, and uh, we have to bear a couple of points that for metro ridership to actually pick up or come to close to what your DPR levels are there are two things required. One is that the length of network has to be reasonably uh, close to about 30, 40 kilometer. That is one. And secondly, some time is required, because it's not that today you inaugurate a metro and then tomorrow onwards you start seeing the modal shift. Because here also Newton's law applies that any change requires some force or some incentive. And for the people to change their mode, there has to be some driving factor, either way of saving in time or saving in money or convenience. So, and these things take some time for people to actually get hold of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, over to you, Pawan.
Thank you, Sujit. Now, I had a couple of questions following up on this. Um, is one size fits all actually, does it really get validated in case of metro? Because we are saying that hundreds of cities will have metro. And we have also seen certain cities where the ridership has been extremely low, in spite of them being operational for many years. For example, Jaipur, extremely very, very low ridership. So my question is that um, I understand that cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, all are metro cities. Exploring metro systems makes sense. But do we really think that tier two, tier three cities should also have metro? Rajnish, quickly for your reactions, and then Sudhir.
Yeah, in fact, this has been a question which has been asked at a number of conferences and Urban Mobility India conference that happens every year. And in fact, I would like to mention that our ministry, meaning the line ministry, who takes decisions of approving these metros, that is Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, they came up with a policy called Metro Rail Policy in 2017, whereby they clearly mentioned on the basis of PHPDT, where in which cities MRT will be required, meaning mass rapid transit, where LRT would be required, and where BRT would be required. That was 2017. Following that year, in 2018, a Metro Light policy was shared by the same ministry, And in 2019, a Metro Neo policy, which is nothing but a trolley bus, was its policy was shared. And in fact, yeah, it is a learning curve, and I would really like to appreciate our ministries that this fact was clearly understood that all the cities might not need metros, and one size doesn't fit all. And that's why the Metro Light policy came into picture, and that's why uh, the Metro Neo policy came into picture. And in fact, now if you see some of the cities like Jammu, like Srinagar, if you see the latest PIB release, they are looking towards implementing LRT. I think the same is the case with possibly with Gorakhpur. And then there is a city called Nashik in Maharashtra that might be going for Metro Neo, that is trolley bus. So yes, we are moving forward and we have taken cognizance of these things. That's all I have to say, and I'm really happy to see this kind of development and thought process coming forward from the top level.
Well, thank you, Rajnish. I think it's good to understand about the Metro Neo and the Metro Light, and I think the way the market is kind of shaping up right now, very important that we look based upon the needs of our cities rather than just saying that we will just go ahead and implement. So, there any quick reaction, quick comments on what you also brought it an interesting thing, saying that we need to have at least 30 to 40 kilometers to have some kind of a network to really implement these systems. Do you think that's still valid for Metro, Neo, or Light, or do you think just one trunk route? Because many of our tier 2, tier 3 cities, the travel times may be even less than 20-25 minutes, the average travel times. In such case, do we need these capital intensive systems, or what would you really suggest?
Yeah, so I completely agree that there is no one for all kind of solution that every city should have capital intensive metro project necessarily, because if the span of the city itself is quite limited, then investing that kind of money doesn't make very much sense. And that's why rightly the government has also come up with different types of metro or mass rapid transport system which are specifically suited for that kind of city. So though government of India has a plan for any city which is more than 20 lakh, they will go for metro system. But for the tier 3 cities, the two new things have come, the like Metro Light and Metro Neo, which are cost effective solutions, at the same time providing a clean and rapid transit system, which will cater to the PHPDT, which is prevailing or projected for next decade or so.
Thank you, Sudhir. One moving on, I wanted to pose a little bit different question. Do we see that metros are transforming our cities? Because when I mean by transforming the cities, what I mean is rather than just saying that there are these infrastructure project, seeing metro instead of just saying that it's an infrastructure or construction project, are we really seeing that around the metros, are we talking about jobs which are within like 500 meters distance of metro? Are we talking about access to different services within 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers? Do you see that's happening? Because some initial findings do indicate that within 500 1 kilometer we still don't have that kind of an access, but you still have to go a little longer distance away from the metro, and probably there could be multiple reasons that the network is not complete, it is still under progress, and then some of the critical links are still to be are in different phases. But I just want to understand, Rajnish, from your own experience, that how do we encourage and ensure that the transformative aspects of the project are taken into consideration?
Yeah, Pavan, on this point, I would say this depends upon city to city. For example, this transformation is really happening in the city of Bangalore. It has improved access. In fact, the phase one, it connects the industrial part of the city. and phase 2 would be connecting the IT part of the city. And in Bangalore, we have seen that DULT, which is the planning body, is taking care of improving access to the metro stations. And that's why if you see it reached 68% of what was mentioned in the DPR, vis-a-vis 55% that I mentioned before for Delhi Metro. And that's why I say it depends upon city to city. This might not be the case for Kochi. And as you rightly said, it also depends if the metro has been completed or not. There are some cities where some sections have been opened, and those sections might have been opened on that parts where actually the density of population is not as high, but it was easy to do the work and commission it as soon as possible. And for the same reason, these sections are opened. And this also actually makes sense. You always open, or you might open the section with the most difficult area at the end. And then you can actually understand what is the transformation that metro is bringing about in the bringing about in the city. And on that point, as Mr. Sudhir rightly said, it might not create the change in one day. It at least takes next 5 to 10 years to see the changes, because you see we have a TOD policy at the national level. We have the policy of land value capture, and these policies are taken care of, and while implementing the project, most of the metro companies try to incorporate these. But in fact, you can see the results only after a few years. Yeah,
Sudhir,
thank you.
thank you, Rajnish. Sudhir, any quick reaction on this?
Yeah, certainly. The metro projects, I completely agree and of the view that they also do change, bring change into many other aspects like transformation of the city from job point of view. In fact, from our own example of Hyderabad, where we see that there are a lot of job clusters which are close to our metro stations, and in fact, to help commute in, there are a lot of skywalks and all. Recently in Raidurg, which is the biggest IT hub in Hyderabad city, has come up with a skywalk which directly connects all the cluster of offices with our metro network, providing a very convenient and trouble-free to and fro journey from station to their respective offices. And with metro coming, certainly the other what you call as a other associated offices, hospitals, educational institutes, they do come. Uh, and this transformation happens over a period of time. It's not that because in a existing city there are already existing building which then do get transformed into these kind of facilities, seeing the convenience of the people. So yes, metros are they are not just an engineering marvel or an engineering project by itself, but they are um, helping in transforming the cities in every aspect.
Thank you, Sudhir. A follow-up question on this. When metro comes up, Rajnish, you talked about the land value capture, and its realization is clearly a challenge. What happens is the prices go up, and not sure about how much the benefit is captured by the government itself. But I also have a question on, how do we really ensure that in the metro we are not really making it a corridor just for um, elite people, or people who really because we see kind of big constructions and big developments coming up. But any thoughts on how we would really ensure that there is a provision for affordable housing also, because a lot of the people who use public transport are obviously not your private car users, and the challenge is that how do we then bring more people closer to metros? Any ideas or any thoughts around that, Rajnish and then Sudhir?
So, in fact, that is a question which has been debated and will be debated in coming years, and that's for sure. In terms of affordability, you're right. It's not only for elite, but it's for the common man. And that's why when we fix the fares for metros, one needs to look at the strata of the society as a whole. And in fact, most of the metros in the cities which where they have been implemented, the responses from users have been that metros are cost a bit more costlier than other systems, which is true. And that's where I think the fare fixation committees for these metros need to relook when they fix the fares. And in fact, the way it can be relooked at is there are two components when we look at the return. One is the fare box revenue, another is non-fare box revenue. Fare box revenue totally depends upon your ridership, and what you can play with is non-fare box. And in fact, if you try to maximize the non-fare box revenue, which has been very well done by Kochi, and now most of the metros have understood that yes, we might not be able to have an operational break even in XYZ years. And that's why we need to improve our non-for fare box revenue through advertising, through land value capture, or through FSI, or any other things. I think that is where the solution lies, and that is where whenever the revision of fares is done by the committees, they need to look at this picture as a whole, and then maybe possibly revise the fares thereafter, so that if the lowest strata of the society is not able to use the metros, they could also be brought in, and the whole aim of having a holistic transport system is achieved. Yeah, that's it from my side.
Thank you, Rajnish. Sudhir ji, on the same issue, um, but how do we really ensure a little bit of the affordable housing component along the metro?
Yeah, so that's a very good question that it's not only that the metro and surrounding area should be only commercial hubs and only for the elites, but also affordable housing should also come up. So on that, we have some thought like on Hyderabad Metro, which is a PPP project. As a part of concessionaire agreement, we had some land parcels which were to be developed by the concessionaire. And one of the thing which uh, is is noticed out of this is that for any residential property to be developed, the period of concession, which is about 35 years, is not sufficient. So, in fact, we have requested the government of, and it is a thought for future projects also that for any residential property to come, because if the lease period is about 50 years, then certainly the residential properties also would be in demand. But if it is on lease for only 20-25 years, then there are not much of takers. So that is one idea where um, the land parcels close to metro, especially in a PPP mode, where there is a lease arrangement with the concessionaire. If the lease period is little longer, then it can help promote the coming up of residential complexes also.
No, but just a quick intervention there. Would this encourage affordable housing? What you're saying, if it is longer concession period from 25 to 50 years, would that result in housing for poor? Would that be something, or is it a policy level thing that we all need to really look at?
So policy level in the sense that if the concession period, lease period is longer, it will attract the promoters or builders to make the housing complexes. Because right now they are only if the concession lease period is less, they have a intent to go for commercial complexes because they are easy to sell.
But
Any
the
housing
residential
property.
complexes, but the residential complexes would still be not for the poor, right? It is for people who can afford. But I'm talking about a very specific area of, the public transport users generally. In case I'm talking about how do we attract more people to live around the metros. I'm talking about say in 2 kilometer, 3 kilometer, 5 kilometer radius.
Yes, so
From that
let me
perspective.
complete that. That
Hmm.
what I said is first is at policy level that yes, if the lease period is longer, housing complexes will come. And then housing complexes depending on the locality because metro areas are from the outs from cover a large length of the section of the city. And therefore, depending on the land rates, you can also have affordable housings close to metro areas, may not be in the heart of the city, but certainly close to the metro net.
Okay. And you also were talking earlier about
I
the. Yeah, sorry, Rajnish, go ahead.
just to add to what Mr. Sudhir just mentioned, when you talk about affordable housing, the word itself by definition says affordable, and that too for, I would say, the lowest strata of the society it is needed. So there are a number of questions that need to be answered before we even go for the affordable housing. They would be moved from point X to point Y, let's say 2 to 3 kilometers away from metro. So whenever one is moved from one point to another, there are a number of factors associated with it. The adults, they might lose their income, they might lose their jobs. The children, for the children, there might be a problem going to their school. So in fact, such a movement needs a policy encourage in terms of how this R&R would be done, first. And secondly, how can this affordable housing be sustainable in a long run? For which the solution which Mr. Sudhir proposed may not works out. So this thing needs thought at a higher level, and possibly we would be able to address this in coming years. But right now there are a number of questions lingering around before even we think of these things.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I think the broader point I also wanted to make was let because whenever we think of these metros, we think only of commercial and residential development for a specific segment of the society, and I think we feel that the objective of metro has been achieved. But generally, I'm just saying that while we are also talking about the metro system developments, we also need to really look at the broader society, like how is the access? Because yes, I do understand residential complexes, but all of us here would agree that there is only a specific segment in the society which can afford those apartment and complexes. But what about people who can't afford it, and how are we thinking from a policy level and from implementation to really bring more people closer to metro? I think that's the broader point, a fair point that it requires
Yes.
broader discussion and policy level
Yeah,
intervention.
even if we bring them closer to metro, we can't really make sure if they will be taking metro or buses. That is also a question because this is a universally proven fact that buses are cheaper. They are an adequate solution as compared to metros, which is either a viaduct or an underground solution.
Fair enough. Moving on, Sudhir, you touched about the how in a high-tech city in now there's connectivity with pedestrian access, and many more companies have access to this. So my question is on how do we ensure that the last mile connectivity is not an afterthought when we are doing metros, but is part of the metro system built itself? Because I think many cities, what we have seen is that the last mile connectivity has really been an afterthought. Like after the metro systems have come, then we said, okay, there's some space around metro stations, let's do some parking, let's put some skywalks, let's put some footpaths. So going forward, do you think it will be important that the last mile, when we are saying that governments are investing thousands of crores in metro, then why not little bit percentage X to really improve access of the non-motorized transport, for walking, for cycling, for feeder buses to really come in metro, and it really requires a lot of planning and thinking. Any thoughts on how Hyderabad you have been addressing this, and then Rajnish, you can then come in after that. Sudhirji, you're on mute, Sudhirji.
Sorry. Yeah. So yes, it would be very right to go from the planning stage itself and take all these aspects into consideration. One is not only connectivity and skywalks, but also integration with other modes of transports. Like so on Hyderabad, if you say that the way the network has been planned is very, very nicely in the sense because we have more than 8 to 10 multimodal integration points or intersections. So the Hyderabad network interconnects with two of the major interstate terminals like Gandhi, MGBS, what we call as Mahatma Gandhi bus stand and Jubilee bus stand. These are the two major bus terminals for the city of Hyderabad. And our metro station directly lands into these premises. So similarly, we have an interconnection with Sikandrabad railway stations, Nampalli railway stations, and also Kachigoda is very close to that. And we have a lot of interconnection with MMTS stations. And at every place, the metro station and the other mode of transport is very closely located with good, nice connectivity of either the lift, escalator, or the skywalks, things like that. Not only that, we also have important malls connected directly from our metro network. So we have four malls which were set up as a part of the concessionaire agreement, out of which three malls are directly having access, providing a seamless connectivity for the people. So, in fact, uh, it makes for commuters also very easy that they don't have to get down off the metro or on the roads or the street. They can do all their shopping and even entertainment like malls have the cinema halls and all. So it's a complete this thing providing a convenient and trouble-free commute to the place of your requirement and then coming back again without having to go down on the streets. So that is a very important aspect. But as you rightly said that in many project it is not in the initial planning and it is a afterthought. So yes, going forward, it would be important to improve the last mile connectivity and all to have some small parking hubs at every stations which can then make people to come to the metro by their two-wheeler or so, and then take their onward journey through metro rather than commuting all the way from end to end on a two-wheeler or this thing. So we on Hyderabad Metro are certainly working in those directions. In fact, we have a lot of land parcels. We, along with the government authority, Hyderabad Metro, have opened up parking at almost close to 40 to 50 locations on our network where people can either park free or they can park at a nominal rate and then take the metro. So these are also helping us to improve the ridership on the metro. And in a way, it is also making life of the people easy.
I think you bring out a very interesting point on the increased ridership with better last mile connectivity and access. Rajnish, any experience you want to share from projects where AFD has been supporting on how the last mile connectivity is being thought through?
Yeah, uh, I would like to go back to this metro rail policy being implemented by MOHUA, which also mandates having multimodality into the picture. And in fact, we are financing Surat Metro, and we have seen that over the years, are being used. So the MMI or multimodal would be there would be a consultant who will be preparing concept plans, which would be, let's say, XYZ consultancy. And then these concept plans would be implemented by a contractor, which would be recruited through NCB or ICB, meaning National Competitive Bidding or International Competitive Bidding Procedure. And they will be implementing these MMI concept plans after detailing them. So you see, these metro companies, for example, Gujarat Metro Rail Corporation, taking care of these things right at the start, which makes sense and which sets an example for possibly upcoming metros to do these things right at the start. One of the examples that we have from Surat Metro is the station in Surat, which is in the old part of city, where the MMI plan is to connect the railway station to the metro station, to the bus station, and possibly provide the PBS, meaning the public sharing system. So in fact, yes, we are moving towards these things as a whole. I mean, the metro companies are now implementing projects are taking care of these things.
Thank you, Rajnish. Yeah, Sudhir, you
So,
wanted to add
Pawan,
something?
just want to add one more thing that for these planning to go along with metro projects for parkings or for connectivity and all requires lot of coordination at various levels in the state government and central government and lot of government bodies because primarily they are the holders of the and so there is a lot of interdepartmental coordination required in the planning stage also.
No, that's my next question, Sudhirji. Like in a
Sorry,
city
so
where
I think I
no, no, it's good that you have transitioned to that. And my question is that in a city, because I am from Bangalore and we keep seeing that, there is construction work going on. Suddenly the road has been laid, but then, you'll see a water body come and then dig it up. And there are those kind of challenges where there's institutional coordination is a big challenge. How do we ensure that um, it all comes through? I mean, would you suggest that this is an institutional arrangement like a unified metropolitan transport authority or something like that, or do you think the current system as it is really capable of handling this coordination? Just curious, based on your own experience.
like on our project, we had one government body which is called as a Hyderabad Metro Rail Organization, which was in fact a nodal body for ensuring that all this coordination with the other stakeholders or other state units is performed. So we were quite happy with that arrangement, especially with respect to the utility diversion and other things. So as a concessionaire, we were not required to actually go to each and every department and try to sort out because that responsibility was very nicely taken up by the Hyderabad Metro organization. And a similar body is, I would say, certainly will help ease the process.
Rajnish?
Pawan, at the start of your statement, you shared a response as well as first alphabet itself is missing. Unification is missing. This has been on paper for n number of years, but when it comes on ground, things will surely happen. So that's the only thing I would like to share, and I hope to say someday some UMTA will be operational. That's
That's a good hope to have
I mean,
for all
they
of us.
might be operational as that they might be operational as such, but actually working on ground. I mean, 10
Yeah,
people
yeah.
sitting together and coming to one single decision.
Yeah. But I think there are some forms, right? Like was Mr. Sudhirji was saying that the HMRO, in sense that it is kind of bringing all the relevant stakeholders together, but not on just project to project basis, but even at planning of a city is what you are also alluding to. That how do we ensure that it is not just one of the things, but it happens all the time related to any urban transport projects in the city. I know we have just last couple of minutes, so one last question. We hear about the time-based city. Like, can our cities become like 30-minute city, or a 20-minute city, or a 45-minute city? And I'm also talking, say for example, from Delhi Bangalore experience, where congestion levels are so high, and with all these metro systems coming up, metros plus last mile connectivity, door to doorstep delivery in our urban transport systems, do you think we can become a city where we claim that, for example, Sudhirji, that Hyderabad is a 30-minute city, that from any point to any point you want to travel, with the systems that are coming up, we will be able to access any place within 30 minutes or so. Is that something for us to aspire for? And do you think that's something which will happen in the near future?
So this, may I respond? Like, hello.
Yeah, Sudhirji, please go
Yeah.
ahead.
So, Pawan, 30 minutes or 45 minutes or 60 minutes would eventually depend on the perimeter or diameter of the city. So, for a place like Delhi, 30 minutes or 45 minutes may not be the uh, case, because if we are talking of end-to-end connectivity, then yes, because of the very fact that the perimeter is long. But as I said, if we are looking at tier two or tier three cities where the end-to-end distance is in the order of 30 kilometers or 40 kilometers, then certainly it is quite possible to have 30 minutes. Or for example, right now on Hyderabad, like if I say we our longest network is about 29 kilometer, and our travel time is of the order of 44 to 45 minutes. So that way, yes, certainly we can say that on Hyderabad we have this 45 minutes concept. But if you take first mile, last mile connectivity, then yes, we do certainly exceed that limit as of now.
If not for the entire city, I'm even talking about, say, a certain portion,
Yeah,
like
for
let's say
but for an average commute length of about 12 kilometer or 13 kilometer, which we are encountering today in Hyderabad, it is certainly a 30 minutes to 45 minutes city.
yeah, Rajnish, yeah.
Yeah, this concept of 30, 45, or 60 minutes depends totally upon the topography as well as the socio-economic profile, which are also the inputs while proposing a metro system. So as rightly perimeter of big agglomerations will warrant that 30 or 45 minutes would be the right time frame. And possibly for the same reason, we are now looking towards LRTs and metro news. Because if we are thinking of 30 to 45 minutes, then maybe we won't need MRTs. Maybe we don't need such solutions if we know that this can be completed in 30 or 45 minutes. So we need to make a calculated approach and have an understanding if it requires a MRT actually, but yes, take into account the existing cities where we have metros. If you take into account the travel time that exceeds 30 minutes, it can be aimed at. But if we are aiming for it, then we actually need to start thinking about multimodal integration right at the start. And then we can try to actually practically put this so-called words into reality. We can see in lots of presentations we have seamless connectivity XYZ, but this will only be possible when it is realized by the commuters because they are the end users.
Fair point, Rajnish. Um, any closing remarks, Sudhirji, Rajnish?
Well, Pawan, thank you very much for having invited us on this conclave, and allowing us to share our views and ideas on various issues which you have nicely brought out through your questions. And Uh, I once again thank you and hope that this conclave will certainly be beneficial to all its participants and a lot of good ideas will come out of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudhirji. Rajnish, over to you.
Thanks, Pavan, for inviting to this conclave. Actually, all these questions have been debated in future. I hope out of these questions, at least we have solutions or responses to 40% of these. And we have so-called sustainable urban transport solutions in our cities. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. I think wonderful discussion. I think more than a panel discussion, it seemed like we were really brainstorming how to make our cities livable, more better, and really more efficient. And I think thank you so much, Sudhir and Rajnish, for sharing your ideas. I think a lot more needs to happen at both the policy front, the way we implement and do these projects, and hope for a better future where our cities are engines of growth and where equity, accessibility, and inclusiveness become the core values on which we build these cities. So, thank you once again, and thank you for joining.